Hey guys, it's me. I wanted to make a video today which is long overdue. Many of you guys have requested this video over the years, and I wanted to make sure that I was ready to make it. So today's video is going to be about what it's like to work in the ICU as a nurse. So before we dive into it, I wanted to give you a little bit of background and an explanation about why it has taken so long to make this video. So you guys may or may not know that I've been making videos on YouTube for 10 years, which is a long time. I've been making videos longer than I've been a nurse. I have documented my nursing school journey, and you can check all of those videos out on my channel and through the link below. But I wanted to be sure that I could provide the best information possible with this video about ICU nursing specifically. As you may already know, it was ICU nurses who took care of my mom when she was very sick that inspired me to sort of change my life and career to become a nurse. And from the beginning, my goal was always to become an ICU nurse. I think as I started out my journey toward becoming a nurse, I didn't really know what that meant to be an ICU nurse. I just kind of thought that I wanted to be one. I've been an RN for nearly 2 years now in the ICU. That was where I started. And so I didn't want to make this video sooner because I felt like I wanted to have at least a pretty strong foundation of ICU nursing experience under my belt before I told you guys what it was like. So having said that, I thought I would quickly sort of summarize kind of a day in the life of an ICU nurse, at least from my perspective. Tell you what I do during the day, because even though I worked as a nursing assistant for about 1.5 years in an ICU, I didn't really know what the nurses did up until I started my first day as a nurse. So your experience may be completely different from mine, but the ICU where I work, we are sort of a general ICU. We take all patients, all types of patients, and our focus is, if we have a specialty, we are sort of the neurosurgical ICU of the Austin area, sort of the greater Central Texas area. So we take everybody. We take heart patients, we take electrophysiology patients, which also we're sort of a specialty hospital in that respect, but really we're sort of the neuro place to be. So those will be kind of my focuses. Of course, if you take transplants or whatever, you might have a very different ICU setting. We're not a trauma facility, so we don't do any trauma. But anyway, I'll give you a general idea of what it's like to be an ICU nurse and then talk to you about our sort of specialties, and hopefully it will help you guys. First of all, let's start from the basics. So when I come to work, I take 1 or 2 patients. That's not to say that an ICU nurse is better or more specialized or skilled than any other type of nurse. It's just we're kind of a specialty like any other nurse, and typically our patients are sick enough that they need interventions frequently enough that the nurse taking care of them cannot safely take care of more than 1 or 2 patients. Depending on how sick they are, we'll have 1 or 2. So there's a lot of, like, within the hospital, people talk about ICU nurses in a lot of different ways. We have a good reputation, we have a bad reputation. What I do in the ICU is not better than anybody or worse than anybody. It's just different and it's specialized. You could not ever send me to labor and delivery or to the neonatal ICU or to even med-surg. There are so many places where I can't work. I couldn't work in the operating room. I couldn't work all over the damn place. What I know how to do is work in the ICU, and we take the sickest patients in the whole hospital, but that doesn't mean that that's because I'm a better nurse. It's just that I'm a specific type of nurse working for sort of a specific patient population. So that's that. I wanted to give that as a disclaimer. I guess sort of as a cover your ass kind of measure, because so many people have a kind of strong view of ICU nurses, either in a good or a bad way. So what do we actually do in the ICU? In the ICU, I start my day in the way that most nurses start their day, by getting a report. So I get report on my patients. We do bedside report, and my report is typically very thorough. We do a head-to-toe assessment. We look at the patient, reviewing every body system. We look at all of their lines and drains, and in the ICU, most of our patients are on multiple drips. They have a Foley, they might have a rectal tube, they might have an arterial line, they will probably have some sort of central line, they could be on a dialysis line, they are probably on a ventilator. There's a lot of lines, there's a lot of things going in and out of the patient, so we look at all of those things, just making sure that the shift leaving is on board with my shift coming on. There will be a full head-to-toe assessment that I do as soon as I'm done with report. I look at my patients from head to toe, everywhere, front and back, looking at the whole big picture. And as I said, the most important thing is that I've covered every base when I get to work in the morning, because once the off-going shift leaves, it's all about me. So I want to make sure that I know what's going on with the patient, what's happening, what are they receiving, what are they not supposed to receive, what's their skin look like. You want to be covered because so many things can happen in a 12-hour shift in the ICU. After I receive my shift report, I will be reviewing patient orders, all of those things that every nurse does. I try, if I can, to document an assessment on my patients first thing in the morning. So I show up on the unit for my shift at about 6:45, 7 a.m. I get my report. I try to document an assessment before 8 in the morning. If not, both assessments before 8 in the morning. That, of course, doesn't always work. But I do that because it's a part of my job that is required, but it's something that can get so super delayed if you don't do it first thing in the morning. And then so many things happen throughout the day that you don't even remember what your shift assessment was like when you first got there. So before I do anything else, I try to document at least one assessment, if not two. Most medications, which we'll get to meds next, that's typically my next step, they're not necessarily super time sensitive in the morning. So if I have 8 and 9 a.m. meds, I try to do my assessments first, get it out of the way so that I can hit the ground running with everything else that's going to happen during the day. Next will be to give meds. Hopefully I will have my assessments done and documented by this time, and then it'll be time to give meds. As I said, our meds are often due at 8 or 9 in the morning, so I'll be giving those meds. We have a lot of scheduled meds where you also might need to be giving PRN meds, and then you need to be reviewing your drips. In the ICU, we have a lot of drips if we're maintaining patients' blood pressures or sedation or whatever. You have drips hanging that don't necessarily have timing on them. So I need to make sure that all of my drips are running current, that I'm not running out of a critical pressor or something. So I try to refresh all of my medications in that 8 to 9 hour. In my hospital, we do multidisciplinary rounds, which is really cool. It's a thing that we do where everybody kind of gets together and rounds on every patient to make sure that we're all on board. So involved in that round, as I said, it's the critical care doc, it's the ICU charge nurse, it's me who is kind of hosting the tale, and then everyone else, we have pharmacy, we have respiratory therapy, we have case management, social worker, we have dietary, we have infection prevention, we have the chaplain. So basically everybody gets on board and talks about the patient, and everyone expresses their needs and what their plan is and their goals, which is really cool. And I wish that happened in every unit in the whole hospital, in every hospital. We have multidisciplinary rounds, and after or before that time, most of the doctors have round. We typically see in the ICU that most of our doctors round relatively early in the morning. So after all of my doctors have rounded and after all of the disciplinary rounds have happened, it's time to sort of enact, what's the term? Carry out the doctor's orders. A lot of meds will be changed. There might be treatments. There might be trips that we have to take with our patients. So trying to like complete the orders, update the family, make sure the patient is aware of what's going on. Of course, we also have to be updating family if they're not there. We have to be obtaining consents, which so many of our patients can't sign their own consents. So a lot of times after doctor's rounds, we have to be in touch with family over the phone, things like that. The rest of the day really is about carrying out the orders that have been established that morning. So as you've seen, we're working with all sorts of people throughout the disciplines in the hospital setting, and it's really interesting. It's also really fun and exciting and rewarding for me to be that sort of crucial central element. The wheel of healthcare is constantly spinning, and I'm sort of that central point. Everyone comes to me as the nurse to find out what's going on with the patient, and it's really, really satisfying. It's also very rewarding for me personally, as the patient is completely overwhelmed by what's going on and who are these people coming into their room. They really latch onto you as the nurse and say, "You, Nick, I know you've been here. What's going on? Explain to me what's happening." And throughout the day, the one constant in their environment is the nurse, and that's me. And that's why I find ICU nursing so rewarding. A few things that make ICU nursing unique. As I said, we only have 1 or 2 patients, and that doesn't mean that we're better nurses or less busy nurses, but there's a lot going on in the ICU. We do a lot of things at the bedside that other units would have to send a patient down to some special procedure area or the operating room to do. So some examples of what we do at the bedside. Of course, the first thing that comes to mind is any patient that comes into our ICU, we need to have proper IV access, and we need to make sure they're breathing well. It's that ABC thing. So we intubate patients at the bedside all the time. We also extubate them. We also re-intubate them. The breathing things are done at the bedside. We also can do bedside bronchoscopies. Anything involving your lungs we can typically do at the bedside. On that note, if you need a chest tube, it can be placed, it can be removed, it can be placed again. All of that chest tubes we do at the bedside. When you come into the ICU, a peripheral IV in your AC isn't going to work. A lot of the medications we give are very hard on the veins, or we need a lot of medications going and you can't run everything into the veins, or they're incompatible, so you need a line. So we do central line access at the bedside in the ICU. It's typically our ICU doctors who do that, and we'll just assist them. We put arterial lines in. Ideally, if you're on any kind of pressors to control your blood pressure, you will have an arterial line, and we do that right at the bedside as well. So you need to have all of your lines covered. If you need dialysis, most of the time we send our patients down to get their dialysis access, but some of our doctors will do it right at the bedside. So it just depends, and it might vary in your hospital. So basically, you come in, if you're admitted from the ED and you come to the ICU and you're really critically ill, we can do so much at the bedside, which is really cool. And I, as the ICU nurse, have to be prepared to have everything ready to administer meds, to be the sort of circulating nurse when it's a sort of OR type procedure being done at the bedside. Dealing with consents, doing all of that kind of thing. It's really cool. And then we always act as the PACU. If you're admitted to the hospital and you go to the OR, you will go to the PACU, the post anesthesia unit, where they sort of recover you, the recovery room. But if you're going to the ICU, we are the PACU, so we do all of the post-surgical recovery stuff as well. So we do all of that. Other procedures, there's a lot of things that can be done. We can do trachs and pegs at the bedside. As I mentioned, we have an amazing neurosurgery team where I work. Most of the neuro procedures are done in the OR or in our special procedures area, but we can do a lot of things at the bedside. If you've got an increasing ICP or increased pressure in your head and there's an emergent need, we can do a ventriculostomy at the bedside. We do those pretty frequently to relieve pressure within your head. So there's a lot, and these are all things that we assist with as ICU nurses, and that's what kind of defines our job. It's not to say that I'm better than any other type of nurse or worse than any other type of nurse, but these are the things that make me an ICU nurse. I need to be able to identify the need for these procedures, be observant enough with my assessments to be aware of critical changes, and then be prepared for all these procedures and things like that. That's it. And then to also have the time, if I have to be at the bedside for multiple procedures with my patient, hopefully they're my only patient, or if they're my secondary patient, another nurse or my charge nurse might be able to watch over that patient while all of these critical things are happening. In my hospital, we also take care of renal replacement patients who need to be on CRRT. We take heart patients, open heart, we recover open hearts. So balloon pumps. There's a lot of things we do. There's probably a lot of things we don't do. Every ICU is different, like I said, but that's kind of like the summary of what happens and why it's important for an ICU nurse to have only one or two patients. So what I'm here to say is, here's what we do in the ICU. I hope this helped you guys. If you want to become an ICU nurse, you definitely should. If you want to get into ICU right out of nursing school, I encourage you to do it. I did it. I think that's probably about it. This was a long video, but it's long overdue. I've been wanting to make it for years. So if you guys have any questions about nursing, ICU nursing, being an ICU family member or patient, all those kinds of questions, I'm welcome to. So put them below and I respond to everybody that I see. Make sure you subscribe to my channel if you like it. Leave a comment below no matter what. Have I missed something? I don't think so. Thanks guys. I'm grateful for all of you who have been listening and following me for all these years. Until the next video. Take care guys. Bye.